Excuse me. So I'm Faye Prairie. I'm a personal life coach. I'm going to cough one more time. And my areas of expertise are emotional intelligence, dealing with managing your thoughts and your emotions so that you can live a better life. And I'm joining you again today so I can talk about things that are related to getting through this coronavirus issue in the best way possible so that we don't let negativity kind of overtake us. So last night I went and looked at my Ask Faye Anything questions because, as I told you yesterday, I am going to start taking questions from you. And you can go to, I actually have it set up on my website now. So you can go to www.fayeprairie.com/Ask Faye Anything. And if you ask a question, I will talk about it the next day. So I invite all of you to do that again tonight. Go to, like I said, you can either do the askfayeanything@gmail.com, or you can go to my website and do the Ask Faye Anything page. Either way, I'll get your questions. So last night when I checked my Ask Faye Anything, I had a really good question on there because I think it's something that we all deal with. And they asked me, well, what do you do if you have to live with somebody who's really negative? And it was a great question because I know that happens in all of our lives. I have, friends I know have talked about it. I have, clients that I work with that talk about it. I've had to deal with it in my own life. We all at some point have a negative person. And sometimes you can't just walk away from them because maybe it's your husband, maybe it's your wife, maybe it's your mother, or maybe it's a coworker and you have to keep your job. So we can't always just walk away from that negative person. It's not always that easy. So what do we do? And how do we deal with it? And the other thing about that during this time when there's all these uncertainties that we talked about yesterday with the coronavirus going on, all these uncertainties of financial strains and, what's going to happen and are we going to get sick? And it creates a lot more stress. And people, when you're negative, you tend to get even more negative when you're stressed out. So this time can really create even more negativity that you have to deal with. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few strategies that you can use that will help you to increase your emotional intelligence. When you can increase your emotional intelligence, you increase the ability to deal with things. Like the negativity may not even go away completely, but you can handle it and deal with it better because as you increase your emotional intelligence, you increase your resilience, you increase your capacity to deal with things and to not let it get to you emotionally. Okay. The first thing, which is kind of going to be a challenging statement for both of us because it's the opposite of what we want to do. The first thing is that you can't try to fix them. Okay. I know that's not what you want to hear, right? Because we want to fix that person. We don't want them to be like that. We want to fix them. But truth is, we can't. And we all know the only person that we have any control over is ourselves. We can't make other people change. So one of the toughest things that you're going to have to do is accept them as they are. Okay. Now, when I say accept them as they are, it doesn't mean that we don't still, that eventually we don't use some other strategies that hopefully things will get better. But it means that we come from a place of acceptance. I once told somebody that she had to accept that her husband was an alcoholic. And she's like, what? I'm not going to accept that he's an alcoholic. That's crazy advice. I said to her, it doesn't mean that we don't still hope he'll stop drinking, because we hope someday maybe he will. But when you come from a place of wanting to fix him and wanting to change it, you're always mad. You're always mad at him. You're always upset with him. You're frustrated with him. And then you're like, you need to change and you need to do this and you need to stop being that way. And that's like a negative energy. And that negative energy does not help to change the situation. But when this person, and she finally did accept that he was an alcoholic, she accepted it. But once she accepted it, she was able to come from a different place within herself to help him change. No longer was she full of so much suffering and so much angst towards him and anger and, upsetness. but rather she came from it a place of more calmness and more like, well, what are some solutions we could try? Like, what can I do? And it was actually by changing herself that she helped to change the situation. Hey, thanks you guys for putting out some little loves and likes. I appreciate that. Okay, so you can't control others. So what we're really going to work on is you have to change how you respond. Just like I said yesterday, emotional intelligence is managing your own thoughts and your own emotions. And that's what we have to do here. You have to manage yourself and how you feel. And it's like I told somebody once, and she always said this stuck with her. Like right now, if you have 2 + 2 = 4, let's just say like your one person is a 2 and the other person's a 2 and you equal 4. If you change one of the numbers in the equation, like let's say now you become a 6, okay? You're going to change the end result. So by changing yourself, you can help to change the end result. So you have to focus on you. Like you said, as much as we want to change the other person, we have to focus on changing ourselves because that's the only thing you have control over. So what can you change about yourself? One is, I talked about this yesterday too, but it was like becoming more self-aware. A big part of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. Become self-aware of what's going on with you. When that other person is negative, what does that do to you? Does that make you negative? And then when you're negative, what is your negative energy doing? So you've got to notice what's going on inside of yourself. The other thing about, being around somebody who's negative is that just like the coronavirus, negativity is very contagious. So notice you, like, how are you being? Are you being more negative than you realize? Are you, really judging them? Are you really getting down on them? Really judging who they are, how they're acting, what they're doing, because then our own negativity is within us and we're not even realizing. So become self-aware of that. And then what you want to do is you want to try to become the best, most positive person you can. And how can you do that? Read positive motivational things every day. Watch positive motivational YouTube videos. And if you're around a negative person, you are going to have to step up your effort and do this probably, 3-4 times more than the average person. There's the saying, garbage in, garbage out. And so you've got to make sure, what's going into you is not garbage, because you've got enough garbage coming from that negative person that you've got to try to overcompensate for. So read as much positive information as you can, but do it because you're trying to change you, not because you're trying to change them, okay? Now, when you realize what's going on inside of you when this person acts negative, like, are you getting mad, upset? How are you reacting? Because that's what you want to change. Remember, you've got to change the equation. And the only thing in the equation that you can change is you. So put a wiretap in yourself. Put that camera on yourself. How are you responding? How are you acting? How are you thinking? How are you feeling? Because that's what we want to change. You want to change your response. You want to intentionally choose a different response, okay? Because you don't want to react. When you react, you can actually intensify the other person's behavior and how they're responding to it. So you want to get calm and clean up things inside of yourself so you don't have that reaction, okay? You're going to change yourself. Some things that you can do to help you to change the way you feel towards the other person is to have empathy. Think about, okay, what have they gone through in their life? Like, what maybe has contributed to them being this way, or what's going on in their life right now? Because compassion is a big part of your emotional intelligence skills. You want to develop your compassion. And then another thing that you can do is to focus on their positives. So as soon as they maybe start being negative, you start thinking about everything you do appreciate about them, everything that is good about them. And that can help you to change the feelings of what's going on inside of you. So every time you start to feel upset or you start to feel emotional because of their negativity, start thinking, oh, what do I really like about them? What do I really appreciate about them? How can I feel compassionate for, how this might have come about in their life? Okay. Another thing you can do is to hold a mirror up for them. We think that everybody knows when they're being negative, but sometimes they really don't. It's just become a habit and they don't even realize it. So think about holding a mirror up for them to see themselves, but you have to do it in a very gentle, a respectful, just really light way. So for instance, you might say to them, I have a really hard time listening to that negativity, so I just need to go take a break. Or, it makes me feel sad and overwhelmed. Or, when I'm hearing all that negative talk, or maybe with the coronavirus and stuff going on now, it's like, I already kind of feel sad and scared enough, so I can't listen to that negativity. So I just need to leave right now. The thing is, you want to use the word I, because if you say to them, like, you are being negative, you are making me feel worse, you are doing this, people get defensive. They don't like that. So instead, take your responsibility. Like, I'm feeling challenged by this, or I'm feeling overwhelmed by this. I just need to go take a break. And then maybe try to, if you're in a position where you can leave the room, go somewhere else, because the advantage of that is every single time you do that, you're going to eventually train them that you're going to walk away when they're being negative, and they might not like that because they kind of maybe want you to stay with them. So they might start changing things themselves. But again, you're not ragging on them to change. You're changing something, and it could have a ripple effect. So the main thing with emotional intelligence is you're trying to change yourself. You're changing the way you respond. You're changing the way you think about it. You're changing the way you act about it, which is all going to help change that equation so that you can get a different outcome. So even though I'm saying you can't change them and you have to accept them, there are things that you do within yourself. And it's not going to be overnight. You're not going to see changes overnight. But you're also going to feel like at least you're being proactive because you are taking actions and you are doing something. But it's got to be about you and changing yourself. Okay. So honesty with them, like I said, sometimes they don't even realize they're being that way. You just, you say it honestly, but you say it very, very gently. Okay. Sometimes also you can just listen to them. Sometimes people, they just need to be listened to without telling them they're wrong or without judging them or anything. Just listen to them. And it doesn't mean that you have to do it again and again and again. And you're listening doesn't mean you agree with them. But sometimes if they can, express something and not have anybody judge it, but just listen to them, that can be helpful too. All right. So there's a few different things that you can do. You help somebody else by changing yourself. It's like you want to be the light and you want to help pull that person up into your light. So you change them by changing yourself. And that's really a lot of what emotional intelligence is that it's working on changing our thoughts, changing our feelings so that we become a stronger, better version of ourselves. Okay, does that help anybody? And I really appreciate you joining me. If you guys can think of anybody that this video would help, because I'm trying to make this to be helpful to people, so please share it or like it. I really appreciate that so I can pass it on to more people. But again, I am doing this each day because I know that, during this time, thanks guys, I know that during this time we have a lot of stresses in our life. So if you want to go to, you can either email me at askfayeanything@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, fayeprairie.com/askfayeanything. And if you send me a question, I will address that tomorrow. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining me, and I hope you have a great day. Okay, bye-bye.